Hello, dear friends, dear colleagues. I am very happy that I will chair the panel 3, named as Poland and the Balkans, Systemic and Administrative Changes. Until now we have a very productive conference with great speakers, an excellent debate. We opened many questions, many issues regarding the Euro integration process, the Balkan issues, the role of Poland, the role of Visegrad 4 in these processes. And now we will continue with very interesting topics also, who will be presented and elaborated by our respected and dear colleagues. At first I want to introduce Professor Jacek Wojnicki from University of Warsaw to give a presentation, his elaboration on disputes on the Polish model of government in public debate. Professor Wojnicki, the floor is yours, please.
How many minutes?
10 minutes.
Yes. Thanks. I would like to talk about the issue of public discourse in Poland after 1989 regarding systematic and constitutional issue. Politicians and scholars consider the establishment of stable democratic order based on the political institution from the consolidated democracy of Western Europe and Polish political tradition to be primary issue. Our constitutional path was quite long. Through the amendment to the Stalinist constitution in 1952, the adoption of provisional constitution of 1992, and finally the preparation and adoption the now constitution April 1997. The basic political issues that were the subject of public debate, both in Parliament, were in the press, scientific community, related to the definition of the new state, whether democratic state under the rule of law or the social state, the position of Parliament, the structure of the highest organ of the state power, the structure of Parliament bicameralism or unicameralism, most affected for the legislative process and performance of control function and link between the legislative power and the executive power. Important question related to the issue of shaping local and regional self-government authority and the scope of supervision over local government administration by the state. The third basic political question refer to the adoption of model of system of government, whether to refer to parliamentary solution or rather parliamentary cabinet solution, or rather to the model of strong executive from the 5 French Republic, the model General Charles de Gaulle. Both solutions, it should be recalled, were used the pre-war Poland period of the Second Polish Republic. It has been widely recognized, both in the scientist community and political practitioner, that the period of the shaping of democratic order, funding strong institution of power in type of executive presidency, may be dangerous and ineffective. That is why the parliamentary model was advocated as more in line with the nature of Polish society. Certain strengthening of the position of the anti-government in the Polish case, the Council of Ministers and its head, was related to use the institution of constructive vote of not confidence and increase in Prime Minister influence on the composition of the government. Exercise the number of ministers and his competence. The above solution were copied from the German solution. It must be clearly stated that they have had position impact on the stability of government before 1997 and after 1997, and the light of the investiture of the Prime Minister. It has increased almost fraud, currently the average office of Polish Prime Minister is almost 3 years, about 3 years. As the fourth structure of parliament, most the party stood on the basic traditional solution, bicameral parliament composed of the Sejm and Senate. However, the position of both chambers is not equivalent. The first chamber is the same. The more numerous, 460 deputies, the government is politically responsible to it. It has endowed this power of control over the government administration, and government itself, it were talking about the Polish parliament, the issue of electoral law applied should be emphasized. This is the internal question. Ordinance to reflect on public opinion of Poles or the shape the same capable establishment a stable government. In period after 1989, we practice in our country both variants. The first ordinance adopted very proportional solution, which result is very fragmented parliament, over 27 parties in the same in the first democratic term. The hiding of this unfavorable solution for the democratic order was brought about the new electoral law adopted in May 1993. Polish legislator used German solution with the treasure of the 5% support for political party to obtain seat in the Sejm. After the application of this model of electoral system, the number of parliamentary party fell to the 5-6 in the next parliament. It should also to point out that the don't clause is used to allocate seats in individual parties in the Sejm. It favors medium-sized parties or large parties, while it is discriminatory small group with regional public support. Another important systematic issue raised to the public debate refers to the issue of deconcentration of state structure. One of the first decisions of the first government, Democratic Polish, led by the Tadeusz Mazowiecki, Catholic and Solidarity activist, referred to the acceleration of local election and the restoration of self-government in municipal level. Such first democratic local election took place already in May 1990, 6 months before the presidential election and 18 months before the parliamentary election. On the other hand, much more dispute, both among theoreticians and practitioners, concern the competence of local government administration, relation of the local government with the central authority, decentralization of public finance, and local government place in the construction of power. Most of this, however, refer issue the future structure of Polish local government. It should be pointed that Polish self-government tradition can be considered on the one hand quite long, the beginning date back in the end of the 18th century, but other hand interrupted by a long period of lack of Polish statehood, partition in the 19th century, Soviet and German occupation during the Second World War, and period of the communist dictatorship after 1945, when local government could be not function and was officially abolished. Finally, it was decided after quite long discussion to shape on extensive local government constituting in 2 levels, basic and intermediate, powiat, model on German solution. Novelty was establishment regional self-government based on several socio-cultural regions, Mazovia, Silesia, Pomerania. However, the issue of decentralization of public finance in accordance with the principle of how much money, so many tasks for local government, of course, has remained unresolved to this day. This is how The main political dispute in the public debate after the record year 1989 were presented. They were become the foundation of the current territorial and political system of the state, subject to correction and change. Thanks for attention.
Thank you very much. For your excellent presentation, introducing the history and tradition of some models, then comparative models and parliamentary model in Poland regarding the newly established one after the collapse of communism and the foundation for building a new political system for Poland. The second lecturer is Professor Mladen Karajowski, who will speak on the reform of the public administration system in Macedonia. I must stress that Mladen has an illustrious expertise in this scientific field. He has published a lot of papers and books in this context, so it will be very interesting to hear him. Professor, please take your place. 1, 2. Oh. This is okay.
Okay, this one is good. Okay, I will try in this short time to explain the Macedonian reform of the public administration story. Maybe it's better to say the fairy tale, but anyway, let's stick to the story. During the last 3 decades, after the gaining of the Macedonian independence, there have been many efforts for reform of the public administration system. Of course, that there were many difficulties during the 90s starting this process. So that is the reason why actually the first real attempt, real strategy for reform of the public administration came even in the 1999. So 8 years after gaining of the independence. What were the main reasons for that? In that period after the dissolution of former Yugoslav Federation, actually Macedonia faced with lots of obstacles. One of the obstacles was actually the embargo from Greece, which actually generated many bad consequences for Macedonia in that period after the gaining of the independence. But it also there were also many big financial crises, many painful process of transition. So maybe these are the main reasons why actually this reform process started later. But actually, after the enabling of the first strategy for reform of the public administration, then came the process of for stabilization and association. It was sort of an accelerator of the reform of the public administration because, as you probably know, the stabilization and association agreement, which was concluded with the European Union in 2001, actually one part of this agreement consists, to be more concrete, in its preamble, paragraph 4, determines that the reform of the public administration is actually one of the goals of the Stabilization and Association Agreement. And of course, the obligation of the parties to pay special attention to the strengthening of institutions at all levels in the area of administration. It relates also to the central administration, but also to the system of the local administration. It has the decentralization process, which came also in this period of the year, in this period of the development of the country. The basic principles for the functioning of the new public administration system in Macedonia actually in that period were the rule of law, transparency, competence, stability, responsibility, predictability, and some other principles. But maybe some of you know that in 2001 came an armed conflict in Macedonia with the Albanian minority. Actually, it was exported from Kosovo, from the territory of Kosovo. And after the end of this conflict came many constitutional changes, which also has generated changes in the system of the public administration. After the conclusion, after the Ohrid Framework Agreement, actually, the system of the public administration had to take care also about the minorities' integration into the institutions. But unfortunately, it did not. It was not related to qualitative, but to quantitative dimension of the integration. It means that the state must take care of some percentages for employing people from the minority groups into the public administration, but not taking care about the competencies and about professional expertise. So what happened after the Ohrid Framework Agreement, instead of continuing the European integration path launched with the Stabilization and Association Agreement, then we actually had fight with percentages and mechanical employment of people in the public administration. But actually, that was not the only problem. We had some also other problems of having dominantly the spoil system of employment. It means employment on the basis of political affiliation, on the basis of nepotism, cronyism, which actually undermined the real reform of the public administration system in Macedonia. Also, there were many attempts to reduce the number of the public administration because, as you probably know, we are around 2 million people. So we have officially around 140,000 people employed in the public administration in general, not only the state administration as the core of the public administration system, but in all, public enterprises, education, culture, and other social services, and so on. So generally, we speak about a big percentage of employed in public administration for such a small country. So always there are attempts for reducement of the public administration, but the result is actually increasing of the number of employed of public administration, because no political party is encouraged to do that because of social tensions and losing the votes by the electorate. And also I wanted to point some more issues which were especially actual during the pandemic, because when using the regular services by the public administration was a real challenge in COVID time, actually what happened is a sort of digitalization of the services given by the public administration, and it was a good trend that happened 2 years ago. Actually, these trends started 12 or 13 years earlier, but these processes were dynamized actually during the COVID time. So people had to use these electronic e-services to get some administrative documents they need. And this trend, of course, continued even after the end of the pandemic. There were several strategies for reform of the public administration, as I mentioned to you, starting from 1999. The last one is in the phase of preparement. Actually, the last operative one was from 2018, and it's ending in 2024. But now, actually, there is a preparement of a new public administration reform strategy, which will comprise the period from 2023 to 2030. And we hope that this will be a real reform, not only in a declarative way, in a declarative sense, but with concrete results. It is also important for fulfillment of the Copenhagen criteria and Madrid criteria, especially launched by the European Union for all the candidate countries. But anyway, it's not only about about the European integration. The reform of the public administration should be a goal by itself for the development of the state. So we always need service-oriented public administration, efficient, effective, no matter whether it is directly connected with the Euro integration process or is not. And I hope that actually the last strategy will show that we have also internal motives for doing such reform, not only external pressure coming by the European Union and some other relevant institutions. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to receive some questions about this.
Thank you very much, Professor Karadzowski. Yes, Professor already identified two main problems for public administration system in North Macedonia. That is a spoil system of employment, which is quite problematic, intervened with corruption, nepotism, chronism, and every other ism, which is with negative consequences. And the second one, which is from newer date, after the major revision of Macedonian constitution with framework Ohrid agreement after the terrorist attack of Macedonian institutions, state and citizens, that is ethnicization of public administration. So if somebody wanted to be employed in public administration, it should be it should come from some of the ethnic communities who are cited, quoted in the constitution of the Macedonia, Albanians, Turks, etc., etc., etc. So the ethnicity before capability. That is the main premises. The next lecture will be held by my dear colleague, Bojana Neumovska, Director of Institute for Juridical, Political and Sociological Research from University of Skopje. She is very illustrious author. She has published many papers, books, and also has a vocational expertise in the context of political parties. She also defended a PhD thesis regarding the political parties and small political parties in the political system of Macedonia. So please be attentive about her lecture. Dear colleague, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you, Goran, very much. Okay, are you hearing me? Okay. So I will say a few words about the electoral regulation in Macedonian model, about what political parties think and how what is the attitudes of the citizens. So we can go on the so since 2002 we are organizing our elections according to the proportional electoral model, and this 20 years of experience and 7 rounds of electing our members of the parliament gives us space to think about the model, think about the results, and change it in the direction that will be better for the political parties and also for the citizens. We are using the DONT formula for calculation of the mandates, which by definition it favors the bigger political parties. Also, the territory is divided in 6 units, from which we are electing 20 members of the parliament. And because the turnout is different in every unit, it has an effect as that every vote is not valued as the same. So these are the main problems in our model. So we can go to the next slide, because we have problems, and they are more important to the smaller political parties, because they are generally they have a few members of the parliament in every elections, so they initiated in a couple of times changes to the electoral regulation. So the initiatives are in the aspects of organizing elections in one electoral unit, then to have a guaranteed mandates for the smaller ethnic communities, and also to have open lists in local elections, so we can see the effect of it, and maybe in the future we will have these changes at the national level also. So about these few mentioned aspects, we did a research together with NDI in 2021, and we did it with political parties and also with the citizens. And my aim here is to present at the similar topics what are the issues of the political parties, how they see these changes, and how the citizens see this. So we had 14 political parties, most of them smaller parties from the smaller ethnic communities, also the biggest political parties in Macedonia. And with the citizens, we did it 6 focus groups. From every electoral unit, we did it 1, just to see how the citizens are reacting to the main questions related to the electoral model. So we can go now. Yes, the next. So about the question 1, electoral unit for national elections, political parties, from 14 of them, 9 support this change. But this change is not acceptable for political parties of Albanians in Macedonia. They suggest 3, 6, or 8 electoral units, which will be more beneficial for them. Also, the biggest political party, which is governing party, the Social Democrats, they support such a change, but under condition of political consensus, which is a very debatable after all. For the Christian Democrats, they believe that majority model will be a better solution, but they would support 1 electoral unit only if the deputies from the small parties of the government majority vote for early election. What citizens think about this? They think that changes need to be done. There is a general support for equal value of each vote, leaving more room for small political parties, and introducing 1 electoral district for parliamentary elections. About the electoral formula and electoral threshold, these 2 questions we only ask the political parties, of course. So the view of the parties about the formula is divided. On the one hand, almost half of them believe that a change towards equal value of each vote should be made, and favoring of larger political parties should stop. And on the other hand are parties that do not have a clear position about the formula. About the threshold, also the parties are not thinking the same, every one of them. Whether an electoral threshold is needed in a hypothetical situation of having 1 unit on the national level, some of the parties are in favor of establishing an electoral threshold, 4 of 14, but most of the parties, 8 of 14, are strongly against, because it will be illogical. If you want to have smaller political parties or representing all the citizens' view in the parliament, then having a threshold will be illogical. About the open list, that is the slide with open list. Political parties, almost all of them, are in favor of introducing open lists and pointing out the arguments for this: better representation, democratization of the parties and society, higher transparency, and so on. Only two of the parties are emphasizing the weaknesses of introducing open lists at this moment in Macedonia. The situation is almost the same between the citizens. They are generally positive about this, although there are also citizens that are more informed about how the political parties are functioning, or about the main criteria of the model. So they are pointing out the negative aspects that can be happening in the future if we very early have this change in our model. Next one is related to the guaranteed seats. So this is also interesting. Most of the parties are not in favor of this solution. Some of them think that if we have change with one electoral unit, this will solve the problem about the smaller ethnic minorities. The biggest two political parties in Macedonia, Social Democrats and Christian Democrats, they think that their parties are big, and that gives us opportunity for every ethnicity to become member of the party, and also that on their list they have candidates from different minorities, so they don't see this as a problem. And some of the parties think that if we have guaranteed seats, this will mean that different ethnic communities will be treated separate. And a few of them are for this change, with supporting the idea, and that will mean avoiding the pre-election coalition, overcoming the bi-ethnicism, and it will show the real character of the country, the multi-ethnic one. About the citizens, most of them are in favor of having guaranteed seats for the lower ethnic communities, smaller ethnic communities. And the last thing about representing the interest of the citizens, this was also interesting for me. The citizens in all electoral districts and among all categories of citizens, there is a strong negative view and disappointment with the way the members of the parliament perform their function of representing the interest of the citizens. Citizens mention a number of different reasons and examples about this. Most of them believe that members of the parliament pursue their personal and party interest. They believe that they are receiving excessive rewards for their engagement, and they are mostly loyal to the party leaders and do not fulfill the pre-election promises made to the citizens. And about the question to the political parties, how important is the view of citizens to your party in terms of building on arguments for changing the electoral model? So the parties state that the citizens' view is very important for them in building arguments for changing of the electoral model. According to some of them, there is their proposals are all what the citizens are wishing for, but we cannot say see the changes. I don't know for how long time, because we are discussing these topics for several years. So I can go now to the conclusions if I have time, just shortly. Conclusions from the parties is that most of them agree with the introduction of one electoral unit. There are divided views regarding the change of the electoral formula. A significant part of the parties is against the introduction of an electoral threshold in case of having one electoral unit. Most of the parties are in favor on introducing open lists. Most of the parties are against the introduction of guaranteed seats for the smaller ethnic communities, and most of the parties stated that the citizens' view is important to them in process of building arguments for changing of the electoral model. And a short conclusion lists from the citizens. They believe that the change are needed in the way members of the parliament are elected. There is a general support for equal value of each vote, leaving more room for smaller political parties, and introducing one electoral unit for parliament elections. They will be more willing to vote for a smaller party if there is only one unit. There is a prevailing positive view of introduction guaranteed seats for small ethnic communities. And generally, there is a positive view about the open lists. And in all electoral units and among all categories, there is a strong negative view and disappointment with the way members of the parliament perform their function of representing their interests. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for introducing the results of your empirical research regarding the Macedonian election model, its specifics, limitation, and also challenges. And what is more important is the perception of the citizens and the public opinion in Macedonia about the political parties, their role in society, their role in political system, and what is most significant as a conclusion, what can be derived from the Professor Naumovska presentation is that she tried to tackle the most problematic issue, partocracy in Macedonia, and the role of political parties, the alternate role of political parties, and the public opinion, the opinion of citizens about the parties and their place in the system. Thank you very much, Professor. The next speaker is Professor Angelina Stanovska from Faculty of Law in Bitola. She is Fulbright Fellow. She is very illustrious author, very with rich biography and rich bibliography. She is also awarded for a published paper in area of criminology as the best published paper in 2020, I assume. In which year it was? 2019, yes, in 2019 she was awarded for the best published paper in the area of criminology. So please be very attentive, and she will speak about a very interesting hot topic which is important not only for Macedonia but also for southeastern, eastern, central Europe, and maybe for European Union as a whole. It is about immigration, brain drain and brain gain policies in this context of Republic of North Macedonia, but that can be replicated to the whole continent of Europe, especially to the eastern part of it. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Professor.
Director, colleagues, and thank you very much for being part. It is to stay at a conference after lunch. So short period of time. I will talk today about immigration and brain drain mostly, because we have that problem in Macedonia. Although when I research migration, I mostly connected it with illegal migration and human trafficking, but I wanted to try and research brain drain because when I was younger, I always wanted to leave the country where I live now, and I also, as many other young people at my country, job for 6.5 years after graduation. This is one of the problems that still exists. That's why I actually chose to try and research what is happening. And actually, you will see from the conclusion, not conclusions, that we actually any research on this problem. So the next slide, how we are going to move through the presentation. Start with some immigration data from Macedonia. So we will see that there is a disparity between the State Statistical Office and the data that is coming from international organizations. Brain drain issue, how it can be defined in a Macedonian context. National documents, and are there actually national documents that are tackling the problem about brain drain? And sorry, just suggestions, not conclusions, but suggestions what we should do and where actually should we start. So the State Statistical Office actually says that from 2004 until 2020, 20 people have emigrated from the country, and it is actually the official data from the national office. But we have a very huge disparity with the data that we're getting from international. Bank says that starting from 1991, when we became independent, until 2018, around 500,000 people have left the country. Then the United Nations has something more. 19 in the report, they said that 664 people have left Macedonia from 1991 until 2019. Why actually we have this disparity with data? So one prominent author, actually he's a writer, he's a journalist, about the problem and the mystery of migration from Macedonia, Tim Judah. Actually he said that one of the problems is that we don't have a definition about what we are going to take as a Macedonian. Actually, when we say Macedonian in the data about migration, whether we think on ethnical Macedonians or we think of Macedonian citizens, because in Macedonia we have a lot of ethnic communities, not only Macedonians, there are Albanians, Turks, and so that is why that is one of the problem that actually gives wrong picture when you see the international data. And another problem is that more than 90,000 Macedonians at the moment have Bulgarian citizenship because of the possibility to move inside the European Union and work inside the. If we see historically, the first half of the 20th century was emigrating were moving to places on the other side of the ocean. So it was either the States or Australia, or maybe in Europe, the United Kingdom. With the changes in the European Union context, the second half of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, beside the States, Macedonians started to move towards the countries of the European. Why actually it happened? We had the visa liberalization, so it was easier to move the European Union countries, and of course getting some of the member states' citizenships. But still, these are the top five countries where we have our migration diaspora. First Australia, then Italy, Germany, United States, and Switzerland. But if we check ethnically, Macedonians are mostly in Australia and the United States, and Albanians are more in Italy, Germany, and Switzerland. And I'm talking about Macedonians and Albanians because these are the two biggest ethnic communities in Macedonia. So on the next slide, you can see two authors, Bronarova and Janeska, actually, researched immigration in a context to find actually what type of migration we have in Macedonia. So one is family reunification, and it is permanent. When people leave, they never come back, or they just come back as tourists. Then we have the temporary migration, which is actually circular economic migration. Some of the young people, while they're studying, go and work and then maybe come back. Or also we have people that are adults that are working in the European Union countries and they're coming back because their families are still illegal migration, but it's very rare in a context that Macedonians leave our country illegally. But we have illegal migration inside with the movement from Africa and Asia. What is important, before I just tell you something about brain drain, our GDP since the independence, it was going up every year for around 3%, but then with the COVID, it actually fell for 5%, and now it is one of the slowly moving up GDPs in the Balkan. And something that is really important is that our government debt went up for maybe half in 10 years. So now we have 51.9%. Economically, I don't know that much economy, but economically they say that it means that when your debt is more than a half, more than 50%, then it means that you're in financial crisis because it is connected with your GDP. And another problem is that we are dependent on energy sources and on supply foods because we are small countries, and now with the energy crisis even more because inflation rates are going up. Something really also important about migration is that from the last census in 2021, because we needed like 19 years to have another census after 2002. So now we have, so it's not like Mladen told you around 2 million, now we have 1,836,000 people, which is totally different than the estimates that actually the State Statistical Office was making, because they said actually you have 2,068,000 people, because we didn't have census since 2002. The State Statistical Office was making estimates on an annual level, but actually when we got the census in 2021, we actually saw that all those estimates were. Also, you can see that our demography is changing. Because 1994 we have decrease of newborns. You can see it also in the elementary schools, in the high schools, and actually we are also feeling it and seeing it in the faculty enrollment. What is brain drain? At first it was used in 1963 by the British Royal Society, and they were using it to explain the phenomenon of migration of their scientists towards the United States and Canada. The OECD is defining it as migration of individuals that have finished tertiary school. It means they have faculty diploma. In Macedonian context, we can take it with highly educated people plus people that are professionally educated, meaning that here we are also including nurses, let's say, because they're part of the medical personnel that is leaving the country. Because one of the researchers of the medical organization in Macedonia is that around 1,200 medical personnel, means doctors and nurses, have left the country to work somewhere in the European Union country. Research from the Global Competitiveness Report that it's actually 13 points, that Macedonia has 2.13 points, meaning in the scale from 1, the talented people are leaving, 7, the talented people are staying. Researching of NGOs and international organizations has shown that around 2/3 from the young people have said that they will leave the country if they have the possibility to do it and find somewhere else. And these are the most common factors. We have long-term unemployment for young people. It says that it is around 36 months between graduation and getting the first employment. Sometimes it is not the employment, the person has actually finished faculty. Decrease of social and personal living standards, long transition. We still have some political instability and also institutional and other factors like tradition, immigration networks, some of the values that are different from the European Union. There is one of the really important pull factors is the changing of the immigration policies of the countries that are destination for Macedonian youth. As I said, one of the common factors is education. So of course, students are saying that the education system has low quality. Why? Because since 1991, I don't know that a year or maybe a period of 3 to 4 years that we haven't had any educational reform. So every government has something new to change, especially in the primary and the secondary school. Students also saying that their studies are mostly theoretical, meaning that they don't have that much practical work. And they're also saying that they don't have a possibility for many internships that will help them to start and work practically what they're studying. And of course the unemployment. At the moment we have 35.8% of unemployment among youth from 15 until 24 years of age. It is better now because it was around 50%. I told you about the 36 months between graduation, and of course some of the researchers of the NGOs says that students are saying that the market is exploitative because people that are giving jobs are actually using the very high number of unemployment. So when you get a job, you just not choose, you're just doing your job and trying to stay employed. And of course the poverty. The poverty rate is 21.8%. We also have 8.9% the work poverty. It means that people are working but they're still poor because they have low salaries. And maybe and don't take me wrong, I don't think that governments should not have social measures for poor people, but you cannot just help poor people and just leave all the others leave the country. Because if you leave the highly skilled to leave the country, they are actually not leaving anything in your economy because you don't have them inside. If you have them inside your territory, they will work, they will get salaries, and they will spend their money inside your economy. So actually it will help the economy to... Of course, one of the biggest problems, political situation, corruption, rule of law. We still have clientelism, partisanship, we have nepotism, a very high distrust in the electoral process, and we have still polluted media space. It means that some of the medias are under the influence of the main political parties. What about the documents? I'm not going to tell you that in 2013 we actually had the first national strategy for networking, cooperation and prevention outflow of highly educated and skilled individuals. It's never published. Any measure that was written there was never implemented. So what happened? Then the government started with some individual measures. What were the individual measures? Next slide. Grants for studying abroad. The government said, we are going to pay the studies for our students that want to study abroad if they are actually enrolled in the top 500 universities on the Shanghai list. And it was okay at the beginning, but actually it's Balkan sometimes. Just at the end, you just didn't have data who actually came back. And if people came back after graduation or their master or PhD, then the government had problem with giving them a proper employment in the social structure for what they have studied. Then we had subsidized employment of unemployed young people. For everyone younger than 29, actually the government was giving exemption from payment of social contribution and personal tax from employers. So it was a big... And we also had favorable grants for young people to start their own business. Around 6,000 euros, but enough for young people to start their own business and actually feel useful inside our society. And what are the suggestions? I have time, I think that's 1 minute. Want to solve the problem, we need to know the magnitude. So it means at first we need to measure the problem. So how many people have left that are young? And if we know the volume, then it means we can start researching the factors. What actually is the problem in our country? Which are the push factors? So our young people are leaving the country. Then we need structural changes in education and state institutions. It's like utopia, but I don't know, maybe it's going to happen sometimes, especially someday, especially in these structural changes in state institutions. Then we need to start using scientific research the way, let's say, Slovenia is using. I don't think it's going to happen because now we have the budget for next year and money for science are even lower than the year before. So as we said, we expect until 2025 it's going to be zero. Science, or maybe it's not even going to be a category in the budget. And we should start using the merit system. It means that the quota from the Ohrid agreement should stop to be used because 20 years from the conflict, and I think that people that are going to be employed in the public administration should be employed because of the professional knowledge they have, not because of their ethnic origin. Then, of course, zero corruption. I don't know about that. And maybe we can start to use some of the examples of some of the smaller European Union countries that have the same problems of brain drain, because Slovenia has that problem. When they entered the European Union, their young started to move toward the other countries, but actually the Slovenians started to give scholarships for other talented young people coming from other countries, especially the Balkan countries, so they actually have brain circulation. Some of them, of their highly skilled young people are leaving Slovenia, but they actually get highly skilled young people from Balkan countries. So it is something that is moving, and they never have a problem with not having a young, highly professional people. So maybe it is utopia what I was talking, but who knows? We are changing. Thank you very much.
Very detailed lecture. Thank you very much for introducing to us the situation in Macedonia regarding brain drain, brain gain challenges. And also I must say that your presentation was as summary of the lectures of Professor Karadzowski, Professor Bojana Naumovska, because one of the main factors for brain drain, one of many, of course, is partocracy and partisanship, nepotism, corruption, also inefficient public administration, but in essence is the problem of ethnicization of Macedonian system, excessive ethnicization of Macedonian system after the war in 2001, revision of the constitution, also the problem with health, social security system, etc., which demotivates young people for staying in Macedonia and looking for their job. The challenges for looking for the job, for acquiring the job, etc. But what is very interesting, I must emphasize, that Angelina tackled one of very important essential premises, what system to be built. Not social democratic, not just social, regardless that Macedonia by constitution is defined as a social state for Macedonian citizens, but social liberal perspective. That is very, very important, because one country, one state should not be only determined to provide social services, but also to provide a development through one liberal perspective. Thank you very much. And the last speaker for this panel is Mr. Marcin Sokolowski, who is excellent, who will excellently speak Macedonian language. Yes, yes, he will speak in English. Yes, yes. Marcin, ten bolom poveli pred auditoriumot, obrati se na anglický jazyk.
Thank you very much indeed. So I will try to say a few words about the participatory budget in Poland, and a brief introduction at the beginning. So the process of local community empowerment, which started in Poland after '89, was an important element of political transformation in the country. The priority was to return to guarantee the residents the right to participate in exercising the public authority and in deciding on own matters. The adopted model of local government is based on representative democracy. So besides the direct exercise of local government authority, local government elections and local referenda, there is a series of opportunities for residents to participate in the decision-making process. The instruments of participation were institutionalized in Poland gradually. So since the beginning, the acts on local government guaranteed the residents the right to be consulted. And the consultation can be carried out in all matters important for residents. The public consultation allows the members of local government community to participate in the conduct of public matters. The act makes it obligatory to conduct the consultations with regards to first, change to the boundaries, merger, division, liquidation of local government units, and second, establishment of auxiliary units in municipalities, districts, civil parishes. And the consultation may also take the form of permanent consultation bodies. The Act of 8 March 1990 on Gmina Self-Government provides for two such bodies, Youth Council since 2011 and Council of Seniors since 2013. And Poland also belongs to the states which promote a new form of participation, such as a participatory budget. And the first participatory budget came into operation in Sopot. It's an interesting name because in Macedonia you have also villages. For example, Sopot, yes, and we have a city in the north on the sea, which was the first one in 2011. Then quickly such initiatives were undertaken by large or very large cities in Poland. And in 2018, the Act of Gmina Self-Government, Powiat Self-Government and Voivodeship Self-Government were extended to be the regulations on the citizens' budget. New name, Budżet Obywatelski, as a special form of the consultation, and the act made it obligatory to establish a participatory budget in the cities with powiat rights. So this is a characteristic element of the system of large cities in Poland, and we have also in Poland an instrument of budgetary participation dedicated only to the rural communes, called Fundusz Sołecki Village Fund. It was established in the Act of 2011 of Village Fund. So now I'll say a few words about the participatory budget in Sopot as a first example. So in 2009, Sopot Development Initiative started a campaign in cooperation with a city, Gdańsk-Wrzeszcz district, named Democracy is More Than Elections. And the idea was to explain local people that they could have an influence over their own city. And the campaign was divided on three phases. The first part, from 2009, was the aim to change the law so the citizens could have a right to propose legislation changes. In the second phase, in 2010, Sopot Development Initiative was collecting votes to bring regulations which will lead to consultations between citizens and local government. And the third phase focused on boosting discussions between statesmen and citizens on participatory budget. So Sopot city councillors adopted the resolution on participatory budgeting, and the first project was Grodowy Park, which had support from some city councillors representing Law and Justice Party and I Love Sopot. And the Sopot participatory budgeting project in 2010 had a budget of 4 million zlotys, which was around 1% of Sopot's municipal budget. And the process of participatory budgeting started in 2011 with the formation of a committee, which included the mayor, city councillors, and the members of the town administration. And the campaign to promote participatory budgeting was planned by the committee together with the town hall. And the information about the participatory budgeting was sent to each household in Sopot. Anyone can submit a proposal by paper form or electronically. The forms with proposals were drafted into one of the 16 categories. The first one was attractiveness of a city, security, public order, education, energy, housing, arts and culture, environmental protection, health, forests and gardens, parks, social assistance, promotion of the city, civil society, sports and recreation, transport and international cooperation. So forums were held in 4 electoral districts in Sopot, where citizens were introduced to the participatory budgeting. And citizens in groups developed specific proposals and deliberated the positive and negative factors of each, possibly making amendments to them. And members of the town hall facilitated the forums, which were organized by councillors. And citizens, by a simple majority vote, set the priorities and criteria for forums. And on sessions with mayor of the city, temporary participatory budget committee decided to submit the proposals. So proposals were analyzed on their formal and legal requirements, cost efficiency, practicability, and of course which include the geographical obligation of the municipality of the Sopot. And the committee also evaluated compatibility of submission proposals with urban development projects. So people vote at polling stations by secret ballot, and for participatory budgeting, anyone who was eligible to vote in election in Sopot could vote on a scale from 0 to 5 on each submission proposal. So other municipalities in Poland imitated the Sopot example, and the idea of participatory budgeting survived. At the beginning, of course, there were some errors that were identified, including problems with double voting, neutrality of town hall members. But the implementation of a participatory budget in Sopot was a success, as a mayor of a city admitted in 2012. So it has to be mentioned that the legacy of Sopot in Poland as the first city with participatory budget in the country. And now, at the end, I will say a few words about the another interesting case of Sołecki Fund, Fundusz Sołecki, which is a part of the local budget. And this is amount of money which is separated from activities that improve life conditions of the inhabitants. And the inhabitants themselves are deciding about the destination of the money, and village fund is a particular form of the participatory budgeting. So important is that sołectwo, which is usually formed by 1 or 2 villages, is very important. Here decisions about spending of Sołecki Fund take place. On Zebranie Sołeckie, which is village assembly, inhabitants of Sołectwo gather on the public meeting, inhabitants present proposals, discuss and vote what to spend money on. And Zebranie Wiejskie, village assembly, is a key element of Sołecki Fund and an example of direct democracy in Polish legal system. Decisions on local inhabitants taken during village assembly are obligatory. Local authorities' role is really limited. They have to include people's proposals into the budget of the commune, and only inhabitants can decide on Sołecki Fund. They have to meet on the village assembly, discuss on ideas, and vote on them in a direct way. The local authorities cannot decide how to spend money from Sołecki Fund. So Sołecki Fund refers to all rural and urban-rural communes in Poland. Every year, until March, first important date in the process, the council of a commune has to pass the resolution on separation or separation refusal of Sołecki Fund in commune's budget. End of July is also another important date. This is the time when head of the village has to receive information from mayor or president on the exact amount of money that each sołectwo is entitled to. So Sołecki Fund Law Act enclosed special formula which help to calculate the exact amount of money for each sołectwo. It is based on basic sum for specific commune and the number of sołectwo inhabitants. And after that, everything depends on the head of the village, in Polish sołtys, who is the executive body of sołectwo, and the village inhabitants. Now they can discuss and vote on the projects. And another important date is the end of September, when project resolved by village assembly, accompanied by justification and expense estimation, has to be delivered to the major. And major have 7 days to examine the project. Of course, formal correctness are important, and project is being included to the local budget for the next year if everything is correct. And the projects are being implemented during the next budget year, and the money are being spent. Inhabitants should monitor the whole implementation process and should be engaged in the realization of the project. Major is responsible for its expenditure because Sołecki Fund is a part of the commons budget, and the project's implementation has to be finished before the year ends because money cannot be passed for the next budget year. So Common can compete for the proportional repayment from the national budget if everything in the process is formally correct and the amount of repayment depends on the annual Commons income. So this is I think it's all. I have also brief information about the challenges in Warsaw case, but I think we don't have a time for. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, dear Marcin, for your lecture. Yes, in Macedonian next time. On Macedonian, yes, yes. It is very interesting topic that which you presented. Participatory budgeting is one of the main components of contemporary democratic political systems. Yes, zajednicina jedinicina lokalna samouprava. It is yes. I must say and I must stress proudly that my city, Bitola, as municipality in Macedonia, it was first with city of Skopje as a complex type of city who entered the process of, first of all, fiscal decentralization. That was the first, and then was one of the first municipalities in Macedonia who started with participatory budgeting. And they have a lot of instruments. They apply a lot of instruments of participatory budgeting. 2 years ago, we published, me and my colleagues from our faculty, we published an instruction manual for participatory budgeting in Macedonia. And we take an example of Bitola municipality in this sense. It is democratic instrument, how to provide an opportunity for citizens to be involved into the decision making regarding the municipal city budget and so on and so on. Okay, so the next step is closing remarks. First of all, I will thank to my colleagues for their great and excellent lectures.
Thanks for
thank you very much, Jacek. Very, very interesting topics, very good points. And I hope that after the publication of these lectures, you will be able to read in details what our lecture scholars today wanted to say, to present to you. And I hope that we give an additional weight to the scientific thought, not only in Poland, not only in partner countries as Macedonia, Serbia, Turkey, and so on, but in global thought. And I hope that we'll have a lot of events of this kind, which are confirmation not just on our mutual friendship and partnership, but also they are confirmation of our effort to advance the scientific thought on higher level. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you very much for you. And I ask for Director of Center for Europe to sit right to me in order to close this event. Mr. Director, please come here.
Okay, you will visit Bitola and University of Ochrydzki. So I invite you on behalf of my colleague, Vice Rector of Goran Ilic, to be in Bitola and also to sightseeing Western Balkans. So first of all, great thanks for all of you coming to us and stay here for a little time. The second issue I'd like to underline, so a great thanks for you, Goran, to cooperate with us, and it is our first project in framework of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But like I said at the beginning of this conference, I hope that it is only the beginning of our long-term cooperation. So we have some idea to apply for next project, to include not only academic staff but also students, and we'll apply the next project in January. So I hope also that all the people who attended to today's conference will be also part of the new project. So I'd like to thank also for our partners, Center for International Relations. So a great thanks for cooperation. It was a very fruitful cooperation. I'd like to thank the University of Skopje. Bojana, where are you? Yes, so thanks for your cooperation. And I hope that it is not our last words, and like I said, it is only the beginning of our trip. So great thanks for your attending. And maybe Goran, few words from you.
Thank you very much. I already said what I have on my mind. Yes, but I must stress that these type of events are building blocks of our mutual cooperation and our future work. And yes, definitely, this is not the last project, Mr. Director. This is the starting position for us, and I hope that in the near future, in a very close time, we will apply for the next project. Also, I must send my greetings to the students who are very patient and who sit here and listen to us. I really appreciate their attendance, because I'm always happy when I see that the students are following us, that the students participate in our events. This is valid not only for you, but for my students in Macedonia, when we ask them to come, when we invited them to come on our events, because you, as a students, you give an additional weight to our events. Without you, this event is only, like a talking shop between the professors, between the scholars. But you are the first ambassadors of our thought and the main disseminator of the thought of the debate, which you heard in this kind of events, or this event in particular. I don't want to talk anymore. I think you are all tired. I want to send best regards on my personal name, on the name of my law faculty and my university, and I hope to see you in Macedonia.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And we invite you all of you to come here, for all some students. Come here.